Hey guys, welcome back for another video. I've got another exciting dash unit. I tell you, 2025 is shaping up to be the year of advanced systems because we've got an all new one in here from Aoocci. They're putting out this as the new flagship. It's not only a full featured dash unit, similar to what we've seen, but this is going to be a lot newer stuff, hardware and software, but they have now added blind spot detection and they call it physical. I'm reading that as radar. We will take a look. If you've been following over the past year and all my dash unit reviews, you've seen that the Chigi units use a camera-based blind spot detection system. I'm just looking for the opening on the box here. And then we've seen the Inov using radar, but the Inov is not a full unit like this. So this, as they claim here, is the world's first, putting both together. So let me figure out how this box opens and we'll take a look. And it's a really tall box. Let's get the unit out here. Hang on. Oh, the whole thing opens up like a door. So here is the head unit itself. Head unit, stuck in the 90s with car audio. Dash unit. That is a snug fit. There we go. Okay. So obviously we have a ram ball with a rubber O-ring. Very important for getting a good snug fit. We've seen some other units just use plastic on plastic and those do not hold in position. So you need some kind of friction device. They also have shock mounts here. So this will help with vibration on your bars or wherever you may be mounting. We've got a single big DIN connection here for all the different connections. Obviously there's going to be a breakout cable somewhere. Now they've got this new branding. I don't know if this is a new brand name they're using or if it's just shortening because they're mixing and matching. On the outer box, they still have the existing, but also this shorter version here on the side. So I really don't know. I'm just gonna keep calling it Aoocci for now. We've got an access panel on the bottom. We'll pop that open. Obviously there should be a USB port and a slot for cards, and that is it. I don't see, that might be a microphone on the back, maybe even a speaker port there. And looking at the bezels for sensors, we do have what is probably a red LED, and I don't see a light sensor, but that doesn't mean it doesn't have automatic lights. Wow, that is really dusty and dirty. I've never had this opened, and I'm 99% sure it's a brand new unit. Could have been just one off from the factory there. Just want to make sure I don't have any scratches. This debris is actually on the underside of the glass. I've got like a hair. Let's see if you guys can see it, I'm not sure. Anyway, there's a little hair there and there's a little hair there. And those are not on the top. Top is perfectly smooth. So a little bit of a defect there. Check yours when you get it. There's something on the edge there. Oh, yeah, I'm just a complete moron. Wow, that is the best fitting protective screen I have ever seen. Look at that. It doesn't even look like it's there. And I didn't see it because there's no tab or anything to pull. I was picking at that only because it looked like there was some schmutz, you know, just in that little crevice. I had no idea that was even there. I mean, usually with any kind of protective screen, there's a little thing to grab onto, but there isn't here. It just looks really good. It's an extremely clear protective screen. Well, I was right, the hair was underneath it. So there we go. Perfect shape. Moving on. And now, I can see that what looked like schmutz is the tab. However, they didn't extend it past the screen. They cut into where the bezel is. So it doesn't stick out and you don't see it until it's off. They should redesign that just a little bit. And here we have the aforementioned breakout cable. I see one labeled GPS, so that means it's using an external GPS antenna. I definitely prefer internals because it's one less thing to mount and one less wire to run. We've got the rear camera, front camera. This, by the way, has obviously front and rear dash cams plus TPMS plus, like I said, GPS right here. And we've got one labeled controller. I don't know if that's going to be for radar. And then we have the power. And then this end plugs into the unit. I don't know if this has any kind of quick connect, but it may. We'll see. And we've got one of the cameras here, and they are the current bullet style with the GoPro style mounts. Note they are not GoPro compatible. I'll verify, but so far none in. No, I can definitely tell you it's not. It's just, it looks similar, but it is not using actual GoPro style mounts that are 100% compatible. We have the power brick. We have a 3-wire connection, so positive, negative, and trigger. Always a better solution than a 2-wire connection. Gives you more flexibility. I still recommend, no matter what you're using, that you install and use a Fuseblock though, so you can plug directly in. We have the 2 TPMS, and they are the older style. They're definitely chunky. You would want to run these with metal valve stems, and this is going to be the GPS antenna. So pretty much like the first generation Chiggy that we saw last year. It says this end up. You just need to stick this anywhere where it has a clear view to the sky on your bike. So you can't put this under the seat or in a fairing or anything like that. This needs to get the signals from the various satellites. And then we have what I'm assuming, it's either radar or a phone charger. We've got something here that looks kind of like the GPS puck. And it's on a GPS, not a GPS, a GoPro style mount. So it's aimable. That is definitely going to be our radar. Got a bracket here for mounting probably the radar, possibly the main unit though. Then we have a bar clamp, another bracket, and this wire says controller. So this is probably for the GPS. This is a huge box of stuff. No wonder it's so large. And we've got what looks like a spacer. It's got rubber pads on both sides and some bolts. This might be a quick connect of some sort. It's spring loaded. And finally, the front camera, shorter cable. We do have a 64 gig Aoocci branded card, and we've got some tools. Got a nice little screwdriver and some wrenches, some cleaning pads, and that is going to be it in the box. All right. Let's get this whole pile out in the garage, install it on the bike, give it some test time. And just as a quick note, there are no instructions printed in here. You have to scan this and get it all digitally on the outer box. So before I get it all installed on my bike, because I have ram ball mounts already on the bike and I'll be mounting directly just with an adapter, I want to show you some different options here out of the box that we can use. So this piece here completely removes just by taking off the 4 screws here, and you use the included Allen wrench. Now we can get to the mounting bolt for the ball on the underside here and remove it. And what we have is this quick connector. So this simply gives us a simple push button to decouple from the ball that will relocate to the back of here. And then this we bolt directly onto here, and they give us all the additional hardware we need. And then all we have to do with this mounted on the bike, and this being the head unit, is click it into place. Now note, it's not a security quick release. Anyone can come up and just press this and detach the whole thing, but it makes it super convenient if you want to have the ability, and then you can store it while you're off the bike. Now, if you don't already have a ram mount, or you don't want one and you have regular handlebars, they give you this adjustable piece here, and there's various rubber inserts to fit whatever diameter bar you have. Just remove this side bolt and this carriage comes apart, and now we can fit the ball inside here and tighten it down. And you have a fully adjustable bar mount to the ball. Under this access door with 2 non-captured screws that I took out with a quite nice driver they gave us, we've got a rubber plug that is captured, and there we have the slot for the SD card and a little recessed reset button. So I'm going to go ahead and put in the included 64 gig card, and it has a nice placement. I don't need any tools. I can use my regular fingernail to get the card in and out. And just note, it is not a standard 1-inch ram ball. It is slightly smaller. So I actually had to use my medium size. My short one didn't have quite enough difference between the lengths. So you really have to crank this down. I don't know if you guys can tell, but this top side is a little bit more pinched shut than the bottom. just because it's slightly undersized from a standard sized ball. But with it cranked down, it's solid. Now in all these devices, all these reviews, I've stressed that you really need to be using a Fuseblock. I'll put the link down in the description to the video where I installed it. It's only 20 bucks. It is so easy to install things when you have a Fuseblock. You run one set of wires to your battery, and then you have easy ports to install whatever else you want. That's even more important with this device because we have to have two devices plugged into power. This is the radar unit, and it has its own power connection, and it has to be to switched power. They used a red wire. Don't mistake that for constant power. Do not put this directly to your battery. It has to be switched power. So this guy will be on the back of the bike pointing backwards with its own connection, and then the main unit has its own dedicated power connections. I'm not sure why they didn't just route this power through another cable coming out of the main bundle. It's kind of strange and definitely complicates things, I can tell you that. Now I have to wonder if they intended this to be spliced into something like your rear lights or something like that is on switched power, but I don't even suggest doing that. No matter what, I suggest using a Fuseblock. But what they definitely need to do is provide a longer lead. This is barely enough to get to the center of my bike into my Fuseblock, but that's really about it. I would like to see this at least twice as long just for ease of install. But for the cameras and everything else, they give you plenty of wire, no problem there. And the front one mounts exactly the same, just a shorter bit of wire. And don't forget to take off the protective film off your lenses. And just a tip, I'm going to be mounting mine underneath my fairing just above my fender, and it's going to be mounted sideways. So make sure that whichever way you mount it, you have the ability to get to the adjustment bolt and actually tighten it down. You don't want to flip it upside down and then have this up against somewhere and have to take it all off and use another adhesive pad. So as I continue installing here, I just want to make note of a few things and some room for improvement, maybe in the next version. Just want to start off with the remote. Now this is not really what I call a remote. I'm not going to bother installing this just because I've already tested this same unit on other dash units, and it's not a control remote as far as going to different screens or navigating around options. What this gives you is just some presets. Make a call, go to your home screen, take a picture, that kind of thing. And that's all these type do. And of course, you really want it on a bar mount. They do give you another bracket if you want to try to mount it to some other part, but it's not a total remote control. So I'm just not going to use it. Not knocking it, it is what it is, and they give it to you. So that's nice if you want to use it. Now, here's the room for improvement. Starting off with the power adapter here. What they've done, and I suspect what they're doing with everything here I'm going to mention, is they're pulling components from different suppliers, and those suppliers are probably making these things to certain specs, and they haven't customized them. They're just buying things off the shelf. For example, the overall length of the power adapter is normal. However, they put this converter box right in the middle. It makes it extremely difficult to cleanly install. This should be all the way at the connection end so you can hide it. But as it stands, now you have to run this from your battery or your Fuseblock over to your unit, but you've got to deal with trying to place or hide this converter box somewhere smack dab in the middle. And either end is not long enough on my bike to go in between where I need to go. So I'm just going to have this hanging out somewhere just for the purposes of the review, but just note that it is not just a normal long cable. What you may want to do is simply extend these 3 wires and then just hide a whole bunch of extra cables. So you're really only dealing with from the converter box to the battery end. I mean, it still makes it a little inconvenient because then you only have this about 3 feet or so between the converter box and where it has to screw in. And it is a screw-in connection, just like all the others, on this little breakout cable, which in itself is huge. And they only give you a foot of pigtail between the unit itself. So you better hope that you're mounting this somewhere close to where you can hide this, or it's going to look like that. Yeah, that should have been at least a couple feet longer so you could put this underneath the fairing. It's huge. So this is where everything plugs in. Now, the other thing is some other weird cable lengths. I already mentioned, hang on a second, let me put this down. I already mentioned the length of the dedicated power for the radar unit. Very short, barely long enough for just to go between my front seat and the rear of the bike. So, I mean, clearly this is not purpose-built for this kind of install. However, on the external GPS unit, again, definitely from some other spec, because the cord for it is longer than the bike. Yeah, please tell me why you need an automotive length GPS cable for a motorcycle install, but you only give me 3 feet for something that has its own power connection. So just some things like this. It needs to be a little more cohesive, especially for the price. Every component should have been dedicated by somebody that installs and uses this stuff, because it makes the install very tough. So just for the purposes of this review, because it's just on here temporarily, I'm just going to leave the wiring where it is. You can see that it's really as short as you can get it. Unless you mount the actual device really down low, you're not going to be able to run much or any of this out of sight. So just bear that in mind. But I'm willing to overlook even that kind of stuff if the thing works really well. So let me put it on the center stand real quick so I can get it vertical. Then I can align the cameras. We'll fire it up and let's go through all the features. First boot. Let's check the time. Okay. Now I'm not counting the startup time right now. We're going to go through the initial setup. Please format. No problem. Is that correct? And why was that changing? Let's see. 25, 628. Time zone's off, but time, no, it's 1:37 right now. Let me set this real quick. Oh, you know what? I don't even think I have to set this, because once I connect via CarPlay, everything should auto sync. Oh, pretty cool looking dash. All right. So you can definitely see how big the bezels are. These graphics are going right to the edge of the display. So that's the actual display. Let me measure this. It really looks like a 5-inch device. So yeah, lining it up with the actual display, it's like a 5 1/4, 5.5 inch actual display. So it's okay. So first impressions, the graphics look great. Color is very vibrant. Of course, my phone here is auto exposing. We're going to go through everything here. Now, unfortunately, I think I mentioned this before, the manual does not have operating instructions. It's basically a layout of how to plug stuff in. I'm sure that'll change in time, but for right now, everyone has to wing it. Let's start in settings. Very responsive to the touch, so it automatically stops when you go into the actual settings here. Instrument, not sure what that's going to mean. Wi-Fi video, that's probably downloading clips. Yeah, so you can connect direct via Wi-Fi to the device and then download clips just like any dash cam to your phone, or you can pull a card out. Oh, I didn't do the TPMS yet. I'm going to measure those, but we'll get those on in pair. I just want to go through this real quick. Audio settings. Interesting, and thank you to the person that commented, I think yesterday, on one of my older videos where I had asked, why in the world do they put speakers and mics on these motorcycle CarPlay Android Auto devices? And the person informed me that it's actually a specification of CarPlay and Android Auto that any device has to have mic and speaker capabilities. So even though nobody uses built-in mics and speakers in these, you're gonna have the settings here, but you're always gonna be using your headsets. So that's fine. Leave that on default. Does this scroll down? Yes, so there is more here. Time format, 24-hour, no thank you. I like 12. And GPS, let's see anything here. So this is just what it's picking up. If anything, I'm in my garage right now, so the antenna is not picking anything up. That will, of course, change as soon as I roll out of here. This is probably gonna say nothing paired right there. So I'll do that after I run through this real quick. So that's it in the basic settings. Time settings, that's that first screen we saw. Language, that's that first screen we saw. Speed unit, I want miles per hour, good. About this device, probably the firmware, yep, 204. And I don't recall if the marketing said there was anything about over-the-air updates or not. mobile screen, that's going to be your CarPlay, Android Auto. All you do to, I've had comments where saying, why don't you show how to connect via CarPlay? It's automatic. All you do is literally bring up Bluetooth settings on your phone, connect to the device, and then it asks, do you want to connect to CarPlay or Android Auto? You click yes, and that's it. So as soon as you turn this on, if the phone is in range, it automatically connects. There's nothing to do, there's nothing to show. So that's just showing there's nothing connected right now because I haven't done that yet. Recorder should bring up the dash cams. Here we go. All right, so I need to change the refresh. It is on 50 hertz right now. That's why I see, hopefully you can see that little strobe effect. Let's see, post-recording settings. I don't know, let's just go through stuff here. Video duration, I've mentioned this many times. This is the size of the clips. Dash cams work by looping, and when the card is full, it automatically starts re-recording over the oldest videos in segments of this size. So it's not one big long video when you press start and record like a normal action cam. This is recording clips in sequence. And I suggest going with the lowest denominator because when you do have to pull a clip, that can mean the difference of taking 1 minute to pull the clip versus 3. So it's just quicker in an emergency to pull a small clip. So rear record settings, you can flip it either horizontally or vertically. I don't think, let me go and switch to the rear. And yeah, I do want to flip it horizontally. Oop, wrong one. Nope, I want a recorder, there we go. Settings and mirror flip. Yes, thank you. Let's check that again. Must be my finger because I'm hitting that. Must just need that very specific spot. So there we go. There we go. That is correct as it shows. Collision sensitivity. This will automatically lock a clip if you get hit or if you crash. And it's optional if you want it to do that. Sentinel is parking mode. I do not ever suggest you ever use parking mode on a motorcycle because it will drain the battery. This is not a car, and I don't like that companies are putting this feature because it's a great feature on cars with huge, well, that's an electric car, but huge normal automotive batteries. They can stand to power a dash cam in parking mode for days and absolutely nothing happens. However, motorcycles, you get hours before the voltage can drop low enough that you can't start your bike. So I do not suggest using any kind of parking mode, but it's up to you. And of course that requires constant power to a battery. And that requires a parking mode cable, not something in a kit like this. So trust me, just don't do that. Recording switch, what is that? Off and open. I think they mean on. Recording switch. Maybe that means automatically record? Not really sure. I've seen some where you can toggle it to automatically start recording with power or not. I would suggest just leaving that default, but I need to find the refresh rate here. It's usually in the settings for the dash cam, but maybe it's in the regular settings and I just missed it. It's usually in the video section. Can't scroll anything else here. Speeding it, no, we went through all that. Let me find it real quick. Well, I'll have to ask the company about that because I don't see the setting anywhere in here. Perhaps there's a different firmware update for it, but this will rotate, or not rotate, switch between the front and rear cams. So obviously I do have to align the front. Rear looks good though. And I just used the built-in indicator here. There's a little arrow indicating the top, and that is correct on there. Sometimes I've seen these produced where the ring isn't actually in line with the sensor inside, but this one is. And I've got my front one, like I said, tilted on its side, so I do have to align that, no problem. And we have a speedo and a compass on the dash here, on the actual dash cam display. I don't know if that's gonna be on the video recorded yet. It seems to be missing a bunch of normal settings for dash cams. Usually those kinds of things are here in the dash cam settings, but there's nothing there. Usually you can turn on or off your GPS display, or your coordinates, I should say, the speed display, that kind of thing, but there's just nothing, no settings at all. So here we can probably go to past recorded videos. Here's the playback view, yep. Emergency recording are things that would be locked automatically by a bump or a fall, front and rear. These would be your normal files, anything that you've already been recording, and these are photos. I don't know anybody that actually takes still photos with their dash cams, but there is a quick button on the remote to do that. I don't know, maybe if you're going down the street and you see something really interesting and you know you don't want to go back and find the video clip and you just want to go click. That's really all I can think of. This is a microphone on or off. Trust me, the only thing you hear out of sound from these is absolutely worthless, but required. So here we have the settings for our TPMS. I want PSI and Fahrenheit. We've got our high and low pressure alarms, and I know I want to bump that up closer to 50. If you put these too low for your high, as your tires heat up, you are going to get false alarms. And that's for pairing. I'll do that after I check the voltage of the batteries, and that's going to be it for that. Anything here? Radar settings. Let's pair that device. Click pairing. Just click that. Oh, okay, that's it. And it is obviously powered on. Radar switch on, radar mirror. I don't know what that does. Radar rear view. Buzzer. I have no freaking, this is probably stuff that's gonna happen while I'm riding, but it's not exactly intuitive right now at least. All right, let's check out the TPMS. So let's take a look at the TPMS sensors here. They are labeled front and rear. Now they're interesting because they are mid-size, but they are very light, certainly lighter than the last generation of the same size. I would be on the fence of needing metal valve stems or not for these because they feel about as light as the lightest ones that I've ever had. So we do get little security nuts here. You can thread these first down your valve stem, and it just kind of prevents casual theft because you would need a little wrench to spin it off. But if you're not concerned about that, you certainly don't need them. And then we have the wrench. This is for actually taking the covers off so that we can change the battery. And inside we have the standard CR1632. Let's measure the voltage. If these are brand new, you're going to be looking at about 3.2, 3.3 volts. 3 and under, you're going to want to put in a fresh set. And both of these are measuring just about 3.1. So good enough for at least several months of use. This is cool. I've got it powered up and I was just checking something out front. But watch what happens. I heard this weird beeping as I'm walking back into the garage. The radar is detecting me. And it brings up the rear camera, shows you something's there and gives you the flashing warnings on the side. Pretty cool. So I just connected my phone for CarPlay. The first thing I'm noticing after I just opened my garage door is this is a very reflective, glossy screen. I mean, you're seeing it through the camera and it's exactly what I see with my eyes. It is actually a little difficult to see some things. Let's go into CarPlay. Let's go into title. Nice response, good speed. That all looks great. So processing power, no problem there. But just look at that reflectivity. Wow. And it's not because it doesn't have a sunscreen or anything. There's no direct light coming off of this. It's just the actual front glass. It is just super glossy. Let's go ahead and pair our TPMS. Now I've got it off the bike. Usually you have to start the pairing process and then it'll want you to screw it onto the bike and then it learns. Let's see. Bind front and rear. Okay, let's do rear first. No more instructions, so I guess I'll just screw it on the bike. Okay, it's on the bike. Nothing happened. Maybe I tap here. I'm sure that means it's unpaired. Bind rear wheel. Oh, okay, so now it's showing up. Maybe I just missed that before. That must be the serial number. And tire pressure has been added. Okay, so there we go. Yeah, I must have just missed that. Let's do the front. I guess I didn't miss it. So it's blank here, probably until I screw it on. Let me screw the front on. So still nothing there. Let me do it again. There we go. Okay, so screw it on, then press bind, and then select your unit. There we go. Okay, I guess that's about it. The other thing I'm noticing that it's missing is any screen or brightness adjustment. I don't see any auto. I mean, there's nothing. So it's either I'm missing a whole section of settings, or it's just early firmware, and we'll see something else coming down the pipe later on. So good news, there is a firmware update over the air. It's through the app. The app is called Moto Navi. It's third party. The English in it isn't very good, but we're gonna go ahead and update it here, see if the new firmware gives us any added features. Well, that's a bummer. It says we're already on the current version. Never mind that idea. Let's check out the main screen here. So there's one option for you, kind of your dashboard with your speedo, which actually looks within a mile per hour of correct. So I'm not complaining about that. TPMS, very easy to read. You got your clock. Clock on the bike is wrong, by the way. I wish that would auto update like CarPlay. Yeah, so far no complaints. All right, let's check out the video quality. We are here on a bright, super hot Florida day. We're gonna check out the highlights, see how it looks in the shadows and the trees ahead here. And I've got bright open sun ahead of me. We'll see how it does in the highlights. Let me get up to this guy here and see what we look like as far as reading a plate. So I'm about 4 car lengths behind here. I can read it with my eyes, no problem. Here's 3 car lengths. And about 2. That's about as close as you're gonna get. So I don't know if there's any stabilization. Just looking on the screen here, the refresh is a little low, so I can't tell if it's jittering around or not. Plus, it's moving just a little bit on the stand, just because I've got that extra long connector. Wouldn't be an issue if you were using their bar connector. That thing is rock solid. Looking at the brightness of the screen, perfectly fine. Not the brightest on the market, but certainly readable. I don't have any issue with it at all. So I'm gonna give it some more time here, go through our neighborhood roads and let this thing heat up, and then we'll see if it dims at all after being exposed to high temps. So it doesn't appear to dim. Everything looks good as far as I can tell. Radar works. That's pretty cool. And we're about 2 car lengths behind this car here. All right, now I'm gonna double check in editing. It might just be my memory, might just be my visor auto tinting. It looks a little dimmer than I remember when I first started, but I will verify that one way or the other after I get back. All right, so there's daytime. Now let's check out nighttime. All right, finally getting out here after dark. It's been a couple days because we've had thunderstorms as soon as the sun went down. I'm gonna wait a little bit longer. It's just about pitch dark, another 10 minutes or so, and then I'll be able to give a fair assessment of the dash cam quality. But looking at the screen here, I don't believe it has any kind of auto dimming. It is definitely brighter than my dash, but it's not obnoxious. It's not anything that I would need to change or dim down, which is a good thing because there's no setting for it. Touch response to gloves is absolutely flawless. Looking at the actual camera screen here, it's extremely sharp, very nice looking low light quality, hardly any grain even noticeable on the screen. So no complaints there at all. Now, one thing that I just noticed, even though it has this compass and speedometer readout on the dash cam screen, it is not active. It's only active on that front panel screen. I have to think there is going to be a major firmware update coming because it's just missing some key things and a couple very odd things like this. So Aoocci's been really good about that. Hopefully you've seen my past reviews of at least their stuff, the C6 and the C9 especially, and they put out
several firmware updates for those, so I have no doubt this one will be in the same boat. This just launched, so it's still very early. You can tap this button in the upper left and go back to your dash screen here. And if you're using the remote, that's one of the features it has as well, to flip through the major screen types. It all depends on where you're mounting your screen. If a remote is something that is useful to you, if it's within easy reach, I'd say skip it. But if you're, for example, mounting it up above your dash, out of reach, absolutely put on whatever remote control is available to help save yourself some effort. So as we creep up in speed towards 60, 70, the speedo is about 2 miles an hour off of my dash, and this is a dead-on speedometer on this particular bike. So not a big deal, pretty much in line with normal bike dashes. So if you don't have a Gen 3 FJR in the US, it's probably going to line up exactly with your bike. All right, let's try out some plate reading at night, see how the glare of headlights affects things. This is where having an HDR function is absolutely critical. For example, that plate ahead of me, when it's out of the headlights, it's very easy for dash cams, but when it's in the headlight, like right there, oftentimes without HDR, it'll just completely be white, so useless. I don't know how this is going to work. It might be hard-coded HDR on, but I'll see once I get back and start editing. I have not yet looked at any of the clip footage from the dash cams. But just for resolution's sake, at nighttime, I'm about 3 car lengths behind this guy right here, and I can very easily read it with my eyes. I do like the dashboard layout. It's extremely easy just to glance at it. I just noticed the compass on this front screen is not working either. It's just stuck on north. If it weren't for the compass also being on the dash display, I would say that this is just probably a fake graphic. We've seen that before in some other devices where they'll throw up like a fake tachometer reading or things like that on the dashboard, but this is on 2 screens, so I have to think the functionality is supposed to be there, at least eventually. Now this unit is available with or without the radar alone. So if you want to save $100, if the radar just isn't important to you, you can knock $100 off it and you're just getting the updated device. Now it's still a little pricey, even compared to the C9 series from Aoocci. So definitely watch that review and check out all the comparison charts on twowheelobsession.com to make sure that you're picking something out with features you actually need or want, and you're not wasting money on something else. That being said, even with the radar, you're under $500 for this, with everything. All right, let's zip out on the highway and just take a look at some higher speed footage real quick. See how that affects reading plates at night. Can't tell if that traffic is stopping or not. They're really coming up hot to that red light. All right, so we're 5 car lengths, 4, 3, 2, 1. So there you go. So that's going to wrap up this review. Definitely check out twowheelobsession.com. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and I'd really appreciate a like if any of this is useful to you. We'll see you next time.